in a dimly lit bar just off the old highway, the kind of place where neon signs flickered like half-remembered promises. An older man in a worn red shirt took a quiet sip of his drink. He wasn't the type to draw attention, and he seemed perfectly content being left alone, resting his elbows on the polished wooden counter as the chatter of younger patrons filled the room. But this night would be different because a group of loud, energetic Navy SEALs had just walked in, fresh from a training cycle and eager to celebrate. Their laughter echoed, their boots stomped, and their confidence filled the room like an invisible wave. The bartender nodded at them. They were regulars whenever their unit was on rotation nearby, and soon they were settled with drinks, telling stories about missions without revealing too much, joking with each other like brothers. It didn't take long before one of them noticed the older man at the bar. He wasn't hunched or weak. Instead, he sat with a kind of silent confidence, like someone who'd done enough living that he didn't need to announce anything. His posture was calm, shoulders straight, hands steady. Something about him made the SEALs curious. One of the younger guys nudged his teammate and whispered, "Check out the old-timer. Looks like he's been through stuff." Another laughed, saying, "Probably a farmer or something." The older man didn't react, simply raised his glass and took another sip. But eventually, the teasing mood of the group turned toward him. One SEAL, slightly buzzed and full of bravado, leaned forward and called out loudly, "Hey, old man, what's your call sign?" The bar quieted just a bit, enough that a few patrons turned to look. The older man glanced over, not irritated, just observant. He set his glass down gently before replying, "I don't have one." The SEALs burst into laughter. "Come on," another yelled. "Everyone's got a call sign. Even the cooks get one." "What are you, a retired radio guy? A truck driver? Maybe the farmer?" The older man raised an eyebrow at that, but didn't answer right away. The bartender shook his head subtly at the SEALs, trying to warn them without escalating anything. But the teasing continued, and soon all eyes were on the quiet stranger. The leader of the SEAL group, a broad-shouldered guy named Walker, held up a hand to quiet his buddies. "All right, gentlemen, settle down. Let's hear from the man himself." Walker approached, pulling up a stool beside the older man. "We're just having fun," he said. "Didn't mean disrespect. But you've got the look. You've done something. So what is it? What's your story?" The older man took a slow breath. His eyes were steady, thoughtful, almost too sharp for someone his age. "You gentlemen assume too much," he finally said. "Sometimes a person just wants a quiet drink." Walker nodded. "Fair, but you look like someone who knows how to handle himself." The bar hung in a strange silence, tension mixing with curiosity. Finally, the older man gave a faint smile, almost amused. "I used to work with my hands," he said. "Long hours, early mornings. People just called me the farmer." The SEALs roared with laughter again, thinking it was a joke. "The farmer!" One shouted. "What were you farming? Corn? Cows?" Another said, "Man, this guy looks like he hasn't touched a plow in years." But the bartender, who knew more about the old man than he let on, shot them an uneasy look. He'd heard stories. Not from the man himself, but from people who claimed to know him. Stories that didn't match the quiet, calm presence sitting at his bar. Walker caught the bartender's expression. "Wait," he said. "Is there something we don't know?" The bartender hesitated, wiping down a glass slowly. "I'm not one to share someone else's business." The older man gave a small nod of thanks. But Walker was too intrigued to let it go. "Come on," he said, leaning closer. "Farmer, really?" The older man's eyes softened with something that looked like memory. "It's just what they called me," he replied. "Didn't make much sense to me either." The SEALs exchanged looks. Walker pressed further. "Okay then. Why the farmer? Doesn't sound like a military call sign. Doesn't sound like a job title. So where'd it come from?" The older man didn't answer immediately. Instead, he looked around the bar, as though making sure he wasn't disturbing anyone else. The atmosphere had shifted. The younger men who had begun the exchange in playful arrogance were now leaning in, curious and attentive. The bartender paused his work, sensing something important was approaching. When the older man finally spoke, his voice was low but clear. "Sometimes," he said, "a call sign isn't about what you do. It's about what you leave behind." The SEALs blinked, trying to interpret the meaning. Walker frowned slightly. "What does that mean?" The older man sighed and took one last sip before setting his empty glass aside. "It means," he said, "that some fields don't grow crops. Some fields grow consequences. And if you spend long enough tending them—" He tapped the bar softly. "People start calling you the farmer." The SEALs grew silent. Something about the tone, the weight behind the words, made them realize this man wasn't someone to mock. This wasn't the story of a simple laborer from a rural town. There was history behind that nickname-heavy history. Walker studied him carefully. "Who were you?" he asked. The older man shook his head. "Just someone who did what needed doing." One of the younger SEALs swallowed hard. "You talking Black Ops?" The older man didn't confirm or deny it. He simply looked at them with an expression that carried decades of unspoken understanding. "You boys think you're the only ones who've seen things," he said quietly. "But long before you were even in uniform, there were others doing work you'll never read about." The bar felt colder suddenly. The SEALs exchanged uneasy glances. "So why here?" Walker asked. "Why alone?" The older man shrugged. "I'm retired. This place is quiet. People mind their business, usually." The SEALs winced a little at that. Walker cleared his throat. "Look, sir, we didn't mean to disrespect you. We didn't know." The older man waved off the apology. "It's fine. Most people don't know." He looked back at the bartender. "Another drink, if you don't mind." As the glass was poured, Walker asked one last question. "If you were the farmer, what exactly did you do?" The older man glanced at his reflection in the mirror behind the bar, as though he were asking himself the same question. When he answered, it was barely louder than a whisper. "I helped things grow," he said. "Freedom, mostly." And with that cryptic line, the entire bar fell into a silence that felt like a held breath, waiting for more. The bar was alive with noise, laughter, and the clinking of glasses when a group of Navy SEALs off duty pushed through the door, bringing with them a gust of cold night air and the electric energy of men who had just completed another grueling cycle. They carried themselves with the swagger of warriors who had survived things most people couldn't even imagine. At the far end of the bar sat an old man, quiet, calm, almost blending into the background. His gray hair, neatly combed back, contrasted with his weathered face, and the deep lines etched into his skin looked like the map of a life carved by hardship and experience. He wore a faded green jacket, the kind issued decades ago in the military. Though there were no patches left, everything had been removed. To the SEALs, he looked like someone's grandfather out too late. But to the bartender, he was the kind of customer who didn't talk much, didn't cause trouble, and tipped well. The SEALs grabbed drinks and took over a table, their conversation loud and full of stories only they could laugh at. One of them, young and fiery, noticed the old man sitting alone. "Hey," he said to his teammates, nudging them, "check him out." "Think he's a vet?" Another shrugged. "Probably. Or maybe he's just here for the beer." The youngest SEAL, Tommy, smirked. "Let's find out." He walked toward the old man with a grin. "Hey, old-timer," he said loudly, "what's your call sign?" The bar quieted slightly. A couple of heads turned. The old man didn't look up at first. He was stirring the ice in his glass with a slow, thoughtful motion. Tommy repeated it louder, enjoying the attention. I said, "What's your call sign, old man?" Finally, the older man lifted his eyes. They were sharp, too sharp for someone his age. "Don't have one," he said calmly. Tommy laughed and slapped the counter. "Come on, everyone in service had one. Even support guys had a call sign. You telling me you never got one?" The old man gave a faint smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Not the kind you'd want to hear." The SEALs at the table started to get interested, calling out jokingly, "Tell us. Was it Grandma? Grandpa? Slowpoke?" Another shouted, "Maybe he was a desk jockey." The bartender paused, polishing the glass, watching closely. He knew the old man wasn't what he appeared. Tommy leaned in with mock seriousness. "Come on, tell us. What did they call you? The farmer?" He said it sarcastically, but the old man's expression changed, just barely. A subtle tightening of the jaw. A flicker in his eyes. Something old. Something dangerous. Tommy caught it and blinked. Wait. Was it actually the farmer? The old man set down his glass and leaned back slightly. "People called me many things," he said softly. "That was one of them." The SEALs broke into laughter, but it wasn't as bold as before. Something about the way he said it unsettled them. Tommy tried to joke through the tension. "Why, you grow crops? Plant potatoes?" The old man looked at him steadily. "No." Tommy suddenly felt like he'd stepped into something he didn't understand. "Then why'd they call you the farmer?" The old man exhaled slowly. "Because I was sent to places where seeds of conflict were already planted. And my job was to make sure nothing grew out of them." The SEAL stared. Tommy felt his throat tighten. "So, you were intel? CIA?" The old man's voice remained steady. "Something like that." Tommy glanced back at his team, who were now watching with wide eyes. Okay, Tommy said, trying to regain control. "So what exactly did you do?" The old man let the silence stretch. Then he said, "I went in before the operators. Long before. Places where we weren't supposed to be. Places that didn't officially exist. They sent me to prevent wars before they started. And to end situations quietly when they couldn't be prevented." A chill rippled down Tommy's spine. "So you were a man who outlived too many missions," the old man said. "Nothing more." One of the SEALs, the most experienced among them, walked over and pulled up a chair. He had a serious look in his eyes now. "Sir," he said respectfully, "what unit were you with?" The old man chuckled once, a sound with no humor. "Units come and go. Some don't have names. Some aren't recognized." Tommy swallowed. "So were you Special Forces?" The old man took another slow sip. "Special doesn't mean the same thing it used to." The SEAL veteran sitting beside him leaned forward. "Your call sign. The farmer. What did it actually mean?" The old man's gaze drifted past them, as if looking into a memory only he could see. "It meant that I went into the worst fields imaginable," he said. "Fields full of hatred, violence, secrets, and lies. And I had to clean them. Remove the rot. Pull out the roots before they spread. Most people never knew I was there. That was the point." None of the SEALs spoke this time. The bar felt frozen, suspended in the weight of his words. Tommy tried to break the silence, but his voice came out thinner than before. "Did you lose people?" The old man nodded once. "Everyone loses people. But the ones I lost weren't on any official record. They didn't get flags on coffins or medals sent to their families. Some weren't even allowed to exist." The SEAL veteran whispered, "Black operations." The old man didn't confirm it, but the silence was enough. Tommy felt suddenly ashamed. "We didn't mean to disrespect you," he said quietly. The old man turned to look at him. "You didn't. You're young. You're proud. That's good. Pride keeps you moving when everything else is falling apart." Tommy nodded slowly. The old man continued, "But remember something. Not all warriors wear patches. Not all wars are fought on battlefields. And not all victories are celebrated." The veteran SEAL beside him asked, "Why come to a place like this? Why alone?" The old man stared into his nearly empty glass. "Because quiet places are the only ones where ghosts don't shout." Tommy felt a lump in his throat. "Were you honored? Recognized?" The old man gave a small, sad smile. "Recognition is for those who can be acknowledged. I did what needed to be done. That was enough." Another SEAL approached, his tone respectful. "Sir, what was your last mission?" The old man's face hardened for the first time, shadows crossing his features. "The last one," he said, "was the one that made me walk away." Tommy hesitated. "Why? What happened?" The old man didn't speak for several seconds. Then he said quietly, "I was sent to stop something before it turned into a war. But the cost was higher than anyone predicted." The SEAL veteran asked, "Your team?" The old man nodded. "All of them. And the worst part wasn't that they died. It was that no one outside our circle would ever know they existed." Tommy felt a deep ache in his chest. "I'm sorry," he said. The old man finished his drink and pushed the glass forward. "Don't be. They knew what they signed up for." The veteran SEAL suddenly asked, "Sir, what do people call you now?" The old man stood slowly, adjusting his jacket. "Just a man trying to finish his days in peace." The SEALs all stood with him out of respect now. Tommy cleared his throat and said, "Thank you. For everything. Even the things we'll never know." The old man nodded once. "Take care of each other. You're all you've got." And as he walked out of the bar, the SEALs watched in complete silence, realizing they had just shared a table with a ghost from a part of history that would never be written down. Asterisk. The rain was tapping lightly against the windows of the roadside bar when a group of Navy SEALs, still smelling of salt water and adrenaline, marched inside with that unmistakable presence of men who had faced danger more times than they could count. Their laughter filled the room immediately, commanding attention without even trying. They had just finished a brutal training evolution and were ready to unwind. The bartender, accustomed to their energy, began pouring drinks before they even sat down. But on the far end of the counter sat a solitary old man, hunched slightly over his glass, the dim lights casting long shadows across his lined face. He wore a simple brown jacket and a pair of thick work boots. His hair was white, his posture relaxed yet strangely poised, as though he were someone who could stand up and defend himself at a moment's notice if necessary. None of the SEALs noticed him at first. They were too busy trading jokes, recounting close calls, and arguing about who had outperformed who. But eventually, one of them, an eager, loud young SEAL named Carter, spotted the old man. He elbowed his teammates and whispered, "Check it out, boys. We've got company." When the others glanced over, they shrugged. "Probably a retiree," one said. "Let him be." But Carter was feeling bold. He walked over, beer in hand, and leaned against the bar next to the old stranger. "Evening, old man," he said. The old man didn't look up at first, simply acknowledging the greeting with a quiet nod. Carter smirked. "So, what's your call sign?" The bar quieted just a little. The bartender froze mid-pour. The old man lifted his eyes, revealing a pair of deep, piercing blue irises that looked like they had seen far too much. "I don't have one," he said calmly. Carter laughed. "Everyone's got one, especially if you've ever served. You look like military. What did they call you? Grandpa? Fossil? Or," he grinned, "the farmer?" The moment he said it, the bartender's expression changed sharply. He looked at Carter as if he had just stepped onto a minefield. The old man blinked slowly, unimpressed. They called me many things, he said, but none worth bragging about. Carter raised an eyebrow. Come on, what kind of badass old guy sits alone at a bar like this? Must have a story. The old man took a sip of his drink, his hand steady. Not all stories are meant to be told. Another SEAL, Rodriguez, walked over, sensing tension. Carter, he said under his breath, leave him alone. But Carter wasn't done. None, I just want to know. If he served, he should be proud. I mean, look at him. Dude looks like he's seen some stuff. The old man finally turned toward Carter, studying him as if evaluating something deeper. Pride, he said, is a luxury for those who were allowed to speak about what they did. Rodriguez stiffened at the implication. The rest of the team was now watching closely. Carter, still not understanding the gravity, laughed again. Come on, man. Stop with the mysterious stuff. What was your call sign? Just tell us. The old man sighed, staring off into the distance for a moment. Then he said quietly, they called me the farmer. Carter's grin widened. See, I knew it. But why? What were you harvesting? The old man set his glass down. Not crops. Rodriguez swallowed. Sir, if you don't mind my asking, what exactly did you do? The old man didn't answer immediately. Instead, he asked, how long have you boys served? Carter puffed out his chest. 5 years, Rodriguez added softly, 9. The old man nodded. Then you've seen your share of darkness. They all fell silent. The old man continued, imagine going into the darkest parts of the world. Places no maps show. Places even your commanders pretend don't exist. Imagine being told your mission didn't happen. That your team never deployed. That if anything went wrong, no one would come for you. A chill shot through every SEAL listening. I was sent to those places, the old man said. Before the wars you know about. Before the missions you trained for. Long before your generation understood what real shadows look like. Carter swallowed hard. So, Black Ops? The old man gave a faint smile. Black Ops are documented. What I did wasn't, Rodriguez whispered. Covert action? Deep cover, the old man corrected. Deeper than you can imagine. The SEALs exchanged uneasy glances. The old man continued, voice steady, my job was simple. Identify threats before they grew. Remove them at the root. Ensure nothing sprouted. Carter's eyes widened. That's why they called you the farmer? The old man nodded once. Because I tended to fields of conflict. Pulled weeds before they turned into wars. Rodriguez asked carefully, did you work alone? The old man's face darkened with a sadness few could understand. Almost always. Teams draw attention. Lone men disappear quietly. The SEALs were silent now, captivated. Carter cleared his throat. Did you ever get recognition? Recognition, the old man repeated softly, is for men whose work can be spoken of. Rodriguez frowned. So what happened? Why retire? The old man's expression shifted. For the first time, pain flickered across it. My last mission went wrong, he said. Carter whispered, what happened? The old man inhaled slowly. I was sent to a small village overseas. A group was forming quiet men with dangerous intentions. They were planning something catastrophic. I was to stop it before it began. Rodriguez leaned in. Did you? Yes, the old man said. But not without cost. Carter hesitated. Your team? The old man shook his head. There was no team. Just me. But there was collateral. Innocent lives caught in the crossfire. And when I reported it, they told me the mission never happened. The SEALs felt their chests tighten. The old man continued. That was the day I realized some seeds should never be planted, even by those who think they serve justice. Carter finally understood. So you walked away. The old man nodded. I had tended enough fields. Rodriguez cleared his throat. Sir, did you ever regret what you did? The old man looked down at his hands. Regret is a word men use when they had a choice. I didn't, Carter whispered. Did anyone ever thank you? The old man smiled faintly. A few families lived because of what I did. They never knew why. That's enough thanks. The SEAL team fell silent out of respect. Rodriguez placed a hand on the old man's shoulder. Sir, he said, voice steady, whatever you did, whatever you went through, you deserve peace. The old man met his eyes with gratitude. Peace, he said, is earned, not granted. Carter stepped forward, now respectful. Can we buy you a drink? The old man chuckled quietly. Boys, after all that talk, you think I drink anything but tea now? They all laughed softly, releasing the tension. The bartender refilled his cup. The old man stood slowly, adjusting his coat. Take care of yourselves, he told them. You fight wars face to face. That's a cleaner life than the one I lived. Rodriguez nodded. Thank you, sir, for everything seen or unseen. The old man paused at the door, turning back only once. Remember, he said, it's not the call sign that matters. It's the weight behind it. And then he stepped out into the rain, disappearing into the night like a ghost returning to the shadows.